What's up, John? How's it going?
It's going, Mike.
We
No,
have kind of a
yeah,
special night tonight, Monday night. So, what are we doing tonight, John?
yeah, we got a nice guest tonight. Been looking forward for this one for a while. I think with
Hmm.
tomorrow's release, it's going to make a lot of people happy to add this to their collection. So excited to
Yes.
talk to him, and so
Yeah, yeah. So, a lot of people here, I know we collect a lot of stuff, and we are Star Wars fans. We're fans of Marvel, DC, you name it. And a lot of people, we know Prime One, we know Queen Studios, we know XM, and these are kind of household names. But I wasn't really sure like how much of our audience has actually had a lot of experience with Regal Robot or Tom Spina Design, and so we have there's a brand new product coming out tomorrow, which I'm sure we'll talk about quite a bit. That Tuscan Raider bus
mhm.
that looks amazing. We kind of talked about it on our last show, but I wanted to bring the man himself in because I've purchased quite a few of his things, and John is starting to get into Regal Robot, and I know Ken and Chazen and a bunch of other people here are big Regal Robot fans. But let's introduce Tom Spina of Tom Spina Design and Regal Robot. How's it
Hey
going, Tom?
guys,
Uh,
how's everybody tonight?
Dude, doing
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 good.
great. Thank you. Thanks for joining us on a Monday, Tom. We really appreciate your time. I know you're a very busy man. Tell us a
Absolutely.
little bit. Tell us a
Thank you
little
for
bit about
having me.
yourself.
Seriously,
Yeah,
it's a pleasure. First time guest, long time listener. Like you said, how that goes.
something like that. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, for people who don't know who you are, Tom, can you give us just a little background of what you do and what you're involved in?
Sure. How much time you got? So
The condensed
I
version.
yeah. I've got two different companies. One of them is Tom Spina Designs, where we do all sorts of theming and decor and restoration of original movie props and costumes and sculpture of all kinds, everything from wax figures to bronzes to aliens and costumes and things. And we've worked for everybody from Disney and Lucasfilm and Universal and Henson, blah 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 blah. And then Regal Robot kind of grew out of the stuff we were doing there, and that is where we're doing all licensed right now. Star Wars replicas and some proppy stuff and some busts and characters and really cool furniture and decor that you're just not going to get with any other Star Wars licensee. That's what the websites look like. Go check them out. The addresses are right there. There's all kinds of. We actually just updated a bunch of stuff on TSD, so there's some new projects up there. Um, we keep super busy at all times, and it's a really kind of a wide net. If you go into the site, you can hit any of the four right across the center: sculpture, theming, displays, restoration. That takes you to the four main different things we do there. And
Oh
with
wow.
TSD here, it is a wide net. We do a lot of work for collectors. We take stuff where, in this case, someone picked this up in an auction. It had been on display in Walt Disney World in the backlot tour for a while. I believe it might have even been in Universal Studios at some point. And it was on a very bad mannequin when it was on display in the parks. Really ill-fitting. One of the hands had sort of disintegrated. The suit needed a lot of repair. So something like this comes to us. We have to pull all those pieces off the mannequin, make a custom body that is fit to the inside of that thing in a way that is like, thanks, Kevin, that will really support everything that's on there. It really is. It's like doing things inside out when you're doing this stuff. And then you're restoring all the latex parts. In this case, he was missing a hand, so we actually digitally recreated one of the hands and flipped it to create the hand for the side that was missing. Custom support in there for that long head too, because over time it's heavy and it's foam and it's going to start to droop, and so you've got to think ahead on stuff like that. It's a pretty crazy
Wow.
project, really. Like, this was an intense kind of months long project here, getting this thing refurbished and conserved and on that custom form.
Wow. I kind of totally forgot. I mean, I know I've purchased things from Tom Spina Designs, like my Darth Vader mannequin.
Mhm.
But I forgot about really what you do, Tom. Like, is restoration one of the bigger parts of your job?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's probably a toss up between the restoration and the display side of things, where we're doing custom mannequins or themed or even museum style displays for original props that were used in the movies. Yeah,
Oh, this
that
is
was a
so
turtle we
cool.
restored for Kevin Eastman, who was one of the creators of the turtles. We actually went up to
Yeah.
Kevin's place, and there's a great shot of us. We bubble wrapped him and had to put him in a van and drove him home. Me and Pat went up, and you know the before and after is pretty striking on this one.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
We managed to save all the material up over the head, and then from the mask down, we actually did a fresh sculpt of that and seamed on that skin. Um, if you look across that shell, someone at a party apparently years ago put a bullet bandolier on him, like literally with heavy metal bullets, and it sunk into the
Nice.
foam. We had to carefully
Oh,
remove that without taking any more pieces off. And then it was probably Patrick Louie and Melissa at the shop filled in all those little gaps. And then when you touch up paint on something like this, you're only touching the fill in. You don't repaint the whole thing. You don't go outside the lines. You know, it's like if you fill a crack, you just paint the crack and you have to make it disappear with all the aged paint around it. It's
Wow.
really challenging. It's called in painting. It's kind of like the museum conservator way to paint this stuff. And the idea there is you want to maintain as much of that original material as you can. You want to make sure that, you know, this thing that was seen on screen and was actually in the movie, that you keep as much of what was in the movie original as possible. It's, you know, as possible is what changes from project to project, and
Mhm.
also from person to person. Sometimes you'll get people that was Pat in the previous one. That's Todd and Casey doing the head. They're each going through with tools to make all the scales, like the little dot scales on him. The
Wow.
pore texture he's got.
Wow.
Not pore texture, kind of like a pebble texture. Um, but you know, some people are going to say, I want it to look as good as possible. Some people say, I don't even want to fix anything. I just want to stop the deterioration as best we can. I want to conserve it.
hmm.
There's actually a great article Christine wrote that just went up on the site, and it's conservation versus restoration. And it shows some examples of those. And I think it's in the restoration page, but you can see it right there on the homepage.
Oh,
Um,
oh yeah.
and
Here we go.
it gives a nice primer to what's the difference between the two and what's the goal of each, and you know how can we put that into effect for your collection and what you're doing. We deal with a ton of people that have original props from the films. You know, sometimes you have something like this, which is Jack from American Werewolf, where he's in the porno theater and you know talking to
Hmm. Yeah.
would you mind, the man's a friend of mine, you know. um, and
Yeah.
uh, Jack was something where he had deteriorated pretty badly, and
Yeah.
this was for Bob and Kathy Burns, dear friends of mine. Kathy passed away, I guess about a year and a few months ago now. But they wanted to bring it back to its original Rick Baker glory, and so they got us a bunch of vintage photos, and we found some others, and Rick had some, and we, you know, just this was Mike Thomas, me, and Pat did the work on this one, and just really got it back to where it had been, which was cool. And then, you know, the other thing that you don't even see on this is, yeah, we restored the face, but we
Mhm.
conserved the foam that was there first, and we conserved the body, which didn't have a real form on it supporting it. It was on like a coat rack or something like that. So what
Oh
we
my
wound up
God.
doing is making a full insert that filled out that body perfectly, that kept support all the way across, and kept so that when stress was hitting this, when gravity was hitting it, you didn't have the shoulders drooping anymore. Now they're going to hold in place. The head was better supported without the neck pulling on the body, and things like that, or the body pulling on the neck rather. All of this is stuff that goes into this, you know, and you might say, oh, well, how long did it take you to restore that? And, you know, it was a fair amount of time, but you can say like, yeah, we actually put like a week of work though, studio time, into the body on this thing, just to make
Wow.
sure that over time it's held up as best as possible.
Wow. So, Tom, how do
I got
you
a question.
even?
Oh, go.
Yeah, John.
Oh, go ahead, Mike, and then I'll add. ask him.
Okay, I was gonna say, Tom, how do you even? So to me, I'm looking at the before and the after, and it's like,
Yeah.
wow, it's a stunning job. But how do you even learn? Where do you even start? Like,
Right.
I have no
It's
idea what would be involved.
so it grew out of a couple of things. One was that I had started, and this is we're talking, kind of late '90s here. Like, lean
Mhm.
back in my chair and bring the mic in. I it grew out of a combination of things. One, that I was collecting original props,
Mm.
and that I had lots of friends that were collecting original props. And this is back in the late '90s when it was expensive to collect original props, but not prohibitive. So it was a
Yeah,
really
yeah.
good time to start that. Um, but then also, I was always making replica props for myself all the time, and I had been doing latex monster masks and makeups and effects type stuff, puppets, all of that, really since I can remember.
Hmm.
There wasn't a time where I wasn't making stuff like that. Um,
Hmm.
and the thing I learned is there's no such thing as a perfect casting, and this goes for genuinely everything, whether, you've got a rubber mask or a silicone piece or a resin piece, there's always a seam to be chased, a gap to be filled, a pinhole to fill, etc.
Hmm.
And I, got good at fixing my own castings when I was doing rubber monster masks.
Hmm.
And what does that mean? Sometimes you'll get a cast where you'll get a big air bubble or a steam pocket or something if it's a foam piece.
Sure.
And you've got to figure out, like, okay, how do I resculpt this in a way that blends off with the other textures and doesn't jump out at you? Um, and so there was that aspect of it. The like, okay, I'm pretty good at patching stuff. Um, and I was pretty good at in painting stuff and things like that and doing repairs on things. And it really was, and apologies to anybody who's heard me tell this story before, but it was Brandon Allinger over at Prop Store, was a good friend of mine at the time. This was pre-Prop Store days. And Stuart Freeborn had retired, and a bunch of us, that's an old sculpt of mine, really old.
That's
Um,
awesome.
that was a fun one. Oil-based clay. That's a latex mask there with some hand-applied hair. I think it's painted eyes. I don't even think there's glass eyes in that because I couldn't find gray eyes because it was black and white paint job. I had fun with that. He had gotten, so when Stuart retired, Stuart, had the prop store folks find homes for a bunch of the stuff that were in his archives. If you go one down from where you are, whoever's
Mhm.
manning the mouse, nope, that's many down. So right in the middle of the screen, you'll see Walrus Man and Dr. Evazan.
Oh, where are they? Oh, yep.
There you go. That was this is a 2012 Super Bowl
Oh, yeah.
commercial we did, and
Nice.
that's my old Walrus Man that I made. We made a new version of it for this commercial. That Mike Thomas sculpted Snaggletooth there, the
Mhm.
holiday special style. The big pickle head. I have the original mask from the movie. This is a replica that we made.
Wow.
Brian Lewis, Mike Thomas, Mike Morello, Patrick Louie, bunch of people worked on that. Rich Riley did the head for that, and Patrick, I think, mostly did the arms. Mike Morello worked on the body. I try and credit folks where I can. I have a really good bunch of people. Everybody likes to say, like, "Oh, I got this from Tom Spina." It's like,
Mhm.
yes, but there's a lot of people that make me look good, so I like to
Right.
give them credit where I can. That was me
Sure.
and Melissa and Mike Morello made that one. He's sitting
That's
in
so
the
cool.
lobby right now of the studio. Actually,
That's so
um,
cool.
we got to reuse a bunch of these for different Lucasfilm stuff over the years. Um, it was neat. We got the job only because they knew I had sculpted a bunch of the stuff before. I love the sound guy in the back of this picture, by the way. I don't know why it's coming up so small, but he's like shooting himself with the mic. Anyway, Brandon got a couple of the Ugnaughts, I think 4 of them, and he asked me to try and fix them up. And it
Mhm.
was like, I don't want to ruin them. And he was like, they're already ruined. They had been stored with newspaper in them in a hot greenhouse
Oh my
over
goodness.
the years, and they're foam latex,
Oh, wow.
and they were
Oh,
really,
jeez.
really in kind of rough shape. But what's amazing is, and this happens with all the restoration stuff. This happens a lot with actually all product development too. I find there is you start off pushing this giant boulder up a hill, and with the restoration, it's like you look at it and that's the boulder. You're just like, oh God, what am I going to do with this thing? Like, this is trashed. And then you take a minute, you go out of the room, you come back, you look at it again, and you start to go, okay, this is folded, but underneath is probably the part that I need for there. And this is, in rough shape, but the underlying material is there, so it's not going to stretch out of shape. Or this is something where, it's no longer flexible, but it's at least in the right position. Or I have a couple of tricks now that we can get it into position. And then it's just about, okay, how do we stabilize this? And how do we start? And as soon as you start, you're pushing that boulder up the hill, and it's not always a straight run. Sometimes it rolls over you and you got to go back down to the back of the hill and start pushing up again. But every hill has a crest, and at some point you get over that crest. And then you look and you're like, it wasn't even that much boulder, but I can see it now. Like, it's all here. It just, it literally is like putting a puzzle in place. And like the pieces start to come together. And then you realize, you're like, I thought this thing was trashed. But in reality, it's just a gap here and a gap here. And it needed some support. It needed some, internal repair and some internal, a form to sit on that's going to hold it in the right position. And as soon as you get in the right position, you're like, this is manageable. I can do this. I can get these cracks repaired, and I can make this look good. And those 4 were really a big learning experience. And it's where I accidentally discovered some great stuff, and it's where I intentionally discovered some great stuff. And after that, I really pushed into it. I started learning about museum conservation. I started reading books on storing things and on archival materials. I started experimenting with not just special effects materials, which is what most effects guys use when they're restoring stuff, but with other things that are more archival in nature and are going to hold up better over time. And started to really put together our own sort of recipes, and that became the foundation of what we're doing now. And it's evolved since then, and we've learned a ton. Every restoration that comes in, you learn something, but that foundation stayed the same, and a lot of those recipes are kind of still there. A lot of the combinations and types of materials we're using, and it's neat. Over these years, we went from me in a spare room in the house to me and a couple of friends in the garage, to my wife wanting to put her car in the garage because it was the winter, and getting a studio that Rich Riley made. That went to it was a video game company that was doing the official game for Guardians of the Galaxy at the time.
So cool.
But
wow.
Yeah, that's Rich's brother James. Yeah, that's a fabricated piece. So that's all material pile on. It's not a sculpt, mold, and cast. It is additive, and that's it. So some of that is carved foam, some of it is fabricated pieces of found objects. Some of it is epoxy clays and doughs and things like that. Richard's just a brilliant foam carver. If you go to the theming section, there's a lot of stuff that Rich has done for us over the years. A lot of stuff we've done in-house too.
So
cool. It's, to me, this is really the fun stuff. We have 16 giant tombstones at the studio right now that we're doing for a combination of a theme park and another private client. And Rich is doing another batch of tombstones as well. Stuff like this, and it's just so fun.
Oh, wow.
You're carving big chunks of foam. We've got the black light element, which is a lot of fun too. Rich is he's a genius with foam. And at the shop these days, Patrick did the foam carving, Melissa, Matt, and brand new person at the shop, Lydia, have been doing the paint on them. We curtained off one section of one of the studios so that they could have it in darkness with a black light, so they could paint the black light paint on.
So cool.
But yeah, and you go back into there's stuff, ranging from, like person-sized things, heads of stuff, tiki stuff that we did for the Geeky Tiki guys. And and even there's a 20-foot bust of the Statue of Liberty we made at the shop a few years back.
Oh,
There it is,
God.
bottom left. Yep. So that's 26
Wow.
feet tall with the base on there.
Oh my
Is there
God.
Rich
anything you
made
won't
the
do?
base. What was that? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Is there anything you won't do,
you
Tom?
won't do?
No, not when it comes to, I mean, I guess we've told a few people no, but no, it's we're all about trying different stuff and trying to come up with we want to be the place people go for weird stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, I need a bust of the Statue of Liberty with sunglasses, that's 20 feet tall and then has a 6-foot riser to make it 26 feet tall. And it's like,
Yeah.
sure, I think we can do that. And it was back at a time where it was a pretty small crew. It was maybe 7 or 8 of us, worked about 10 very long days to make this thing happen on time for, naturally, a lot of this stuff is on a tight time frame. This one we had a decent time frame for, but there was a lot of lead up. Something like this, because it was going in a festival, we needed to have an engineering report done. We needed to have welded armature made for it. We had to have giant blocks of foam cut so that we could do it. But like, all of this foam is by hand. This is this is not like we had a robot mill come in and make us the face of the Statue of Liberty. We got big tubes of foam and we got some pieces that we did some profile cuts on. And then the rest is, take a rasp and shave that foam until it looks like the Statue of Liberty. And if it does, then stop, but otherwise keep going.
Where do you get I mean, this has to be what, like a 5-foot by 5-foot block of foam?
8-foot by 4-foot blocks we get. There's specialty places you get that stuff, EPS dealers. We deal with them now for things like the Salacious Crumbs. The foam that comes in that same place. We get the die cuts going on them. And I think people would probably be shocked if they found out how much the foam cost in that thing.
I wouldn't be surprised.
But it's it's what gets it there safe. And honestly, the thing that we're very lucky with Salacious, that he has obvious joints on the puppet, because that allowed us to make him break down, and that really makes it so much easier to travel. And also, like, if you got that and one of the ears broke, we'll send you an ear. It's not as when you're dealing with some of these things where they don't have obvious seams. There you go. It's
real nice.
It's really tough to get stuff shipped because no matter how well you pack it, they toss these things around, and the bigger the box gets, the more rough they are with it.
Yep. No, I think I was I was very fortunate with all of my deliveries, and I've ordered quite a few, and everything's come like very nicely packaged. And
thank you.
The die cut foam and the Salacious was real nice, but because it literally just comes out of its nicely cut hole, and then you kind of pop it in. And I forgot, I think Salacious has like a hollow inside and just a couple of like nuts that tighten in.
Exactly. Few wing. It's 3 wing nuts. Yep. And everything else just pegs in.
Really easily.
Thank you.
I love this thing. I think this thing is great. I mean,
we have another batch. We have another batch that we're going to start to paint probably tomorrow. So they're going out. I think this batch is 17. They've been going out in batches of about 12. And I think it really kind of highlights the difference between how we do things than a lot of the other companies. These are not in some warehouse somewhere, all 150 of them coming out of a factory overseas. These are coming to our shop in New York. They're, we're starting from literally casting, and, you are going to then have tables laid out and 3 or 4 people painting. It is, and same with gluing the hair on and putting the fake leathers onto the bases and all of that stuff. It is not, some giant factory. It's a tiny studio where we're all hands on, and where it is, every piece gets that degree of care, and every piece gets, looked over carefully and hand assembled, hand painted, hand haired, all of that stuff. There's not a machine that spits out salacious crumb ears, you know.
It'd be a lot easier.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, these
So
aren't like, this isn't injection molded. This is, this is people making stuff, and it's cool. It's the way I like to do stuff, and it, I think, is part of what can make what we're doing special.
yeah, I totally agree. And the reason why, I like Regal Robot, and a lot of people who know, my collection, know that I'm trying to get the best. Like, what is the best possible representation of that object or character? And usually when it comes to Regal Robot, there's nothing really better. I know we were talking about it with like the Chewie, for example. This Chewie bust is known as the best representation. Pretty much they took Chewbacca and they kind of cut him like right, at the chest area and put him in 2 giant boxes and shipped them to your house once you paid for it. And that's pretty much it. That's Junior just got his recently. I've had mine for a long time now. And you open them up from the box and you have this giant Wookiee just like staring at you. And even my wife was like, wow, like that just, it's crazy. And so
I think a lot of people, I don't mean to interrupt your complimenting
that's okay.
me, but I think a lot of people also don't appreciate the size of him. I feel like I've been around it so much, whether it's the originals that we've dealt with or even our stuff, that you almost start to lose that. And then every time someone comes to the studio to pick something up, if there's a Chewie out, they're like, oh, is that how big he was? And it's like, oh yeah, this is like massive. There's a lot here.
I mean, so the Chewie from here we go, like this picture right here, from the ground to the top is it's over 36 inches, just about.
Yeah.
And that's it's a big representation.
Depends how much you floof his hair on the top. And anybody who's got these, please dig in with your fingers on the top of his head and give him a couple of these. One, he likes it, but two, it'll poof his hair up a little bit, and it really does help when he comes. There's just nothing you can do about plastic bag head on these guys.
Yeah.
But floof his hair up, fluff out the gills, make sure you get all the curls out from under his bib. Sometimes it gets, do that. What that guy's doing. But yeah, it's one of these things where every time I see one where somebody hasn't given him a fluff up, it's like, get in there. Don't be afraid. We send him with a hair pick. Just don't mess with like this area. It's kind of, we intentionally make that where everything's laid directionally. It's going to hold, but it's one of these things where, it's like, get in there, fluff his hair up for sure.
Yeah. It doesn't come off easily by any means.
Kevin, let's see here. The Cantina commercial is way up there. That was one of the first things where we got to do original characters for an official Lucasfilm thing, and it was with Volkswagen. And the commercial was a little silly, but it was still pretty it was pretty good in the end. If you're looking for it, it's under sculpture, I think. Which reminds me, I actually see something that we've got to fix on that sculpture page. There's an error in that top section, or whatever page you were on. It wasn't sculpture. That was displays. This was a second commercial actually, but a pretty good one as well. But yeah, that first one was really special. It was a lot of pressure. It was real last minute. But the cool thing was, in that first commercial, they built the whole set. And walking into it really felt like you were walking into Star Wars. It was Galaxy's Edge to the max, and it was the original trilogy, and then since then we got to do, like, this is another, this was a video with Nerdist with Billy D. Williams and Patton Oswalt and
that's cool.
Chris Hardwick, a bunch of other people.
Yep.
But this was another one of those. This was maybe a year after, and they said, "Oh, can you make us Nine Numb? Can you make us Greedo?" A bunch of characters we didn't get to do the first time around, which was fun. Every time we've done one since, I always try and get them to get us to do at least one more character. So that we can, like, all right, I want to build the stable.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll probably say that. That said, we did do a big batch of restorations for the Lucasfilm archives at Skywalker Ranch. And those are not on the site as
Yeah,
much as you
sure.
might look.
Mhm.
And that was a really, really satisfying project. And there's a lot of stuff in there we can't talk about.
Sure, yeah.
So that kind of stinks. But the project itself was great. And the one that we can talk about was we restored the original Max Rebo. And
Oh, that's right,
that
yeah.
was one of the toughest things we've ever had to work on. And this is the full costume, not the little maquette.
Mhm.
And it really was, I wish it was something we could share. It really was one of the most challenging things we've ever done. And the crew just worked their butts off. And it was a really great effort between myself, Steve Richter, Patrick Louie, Melissa Ocampo, I believe Maria Turan worked on some of the touch up as well. And it really was just this amazing challenge that we didn't know how to approach. Remember how I said before, you have to put something down and walk away from it?
Mhm.
I did that with that Max Rebo for about 2 months. It was in a crate, and I would open the crate and I would look at it and I would be like, nope, today's not the day. I don't have it.
Yeah.
And I'd close the crate. And we worked on all the other stuff. And, these projects, the restoration stuff is, it's not cheap work because it is not fast work. Basically, we've had some projects where I've had someone like Maria was on a couple of things for upwards of 4 or 5 months on when she restored one of the Borg Queen outfits. And you just have to sit there and say like, okay, well, how much do you expect to pay someone for 4 or 5 months of work and the overhead that goes with it and a little bit of profit? That's what your repair is going to cost, and it's just the nature of that kind of work. But that Max Rebo, it was one of these things where we did all of the other projects and they were all going great. And, every one of them, we had a path. And Max, it took literally months until I was like, okay, this is how we can do this. And then I made Pat and Steve do it because it was a really hard job.
So I have two questions, and one is leading up to this Tuscan. But the first question is, so what does Tom Spina's day look like? So you obviously are part of Tom Spina Design, and then Regal Robot, which is kind of like an offshoot of that. Do you have two separate offices that you work at? Do you have like one main location for everything?
One location. Both companies are out of the same spot. About 6,000 square feet now. We keep inching out, taking neighbors over wherever possible. It's about, I don't know if we're probably about 15 or 16 people every day now. About, I'd say if we're including me and Rob, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 6 people office full time. And they're doing everything from, fielding, inquiries, doing estimates and things like that for the custom projects especially for the Tom Spina Design stuff. That's mostly Christine. They're working on the websites. They're working on orders. They're making sure things get shipped. They're packing things. Christine, crates everything. It's like if you get a giant wooden crate from us, Christine probably did that.
Oh yeah, been there.
Yeah, exactly. Handling things like just all that freight coordinating is a ton of work. Coordinating with our vendors and people who do things like the cantina chairs that we do, or the emperor thrones that we do that are done in North Carolina, and making sure that those are being done and getting to the right people and tracking payment plans. Oh gosh, all of that stuff. My day is, sort of nonstop. Some days it's I liken it to a lot of shirt pulling. It'll be like I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna do this email, and then it's Tom. Okay.
I know exactly how that goes.
But then other days it's I got my hands in stuff. I was painting the last batch of Salacious's with Max at the shop. I am often in the studio side of things, making sure things are where I want them to be, and just watching people work, giving them tips and things like that. The new folks trying to make sure they're doing things the right way and not the way the rest of the crew tells them. Up until very recently, I was the one that did the final haircut on every Chewbacca. I have since trained Sydney on the proper Chewbacca haircut, and she's taken over on the last couple of them, and I've ghost cut, but we're and it's good. We've got this great group that just every time we keep going, every day somebody's learning something new, and just some folks, Melissa and Pat, started in 2011. Christine was 2012. We've got some people here who have been who are just part of the foundation of what we're doing, and it's great. And then we've got great new folks that Katie is still new, quote unquote, although she just so quickly became part of the family. People probably have been chatting with her and things like that when they're getting orders and things. She does a lot of the coordinating on the payment plans and stuff, and she really dove into stuff and became part of the family. It's a good, fun group of weirdos. Thank you, Ken. So I pick those personally. It's a blind pick, but I make sure that they always put a bend in the corner of yours, so I know which one to get. And it is raffle. Christine loves it.
Oh, this is the best. Everyone always wins. And multiple winners of Regal Robot.
Oh, yeah, always. But yeah, so Rob and I will come in, and it's like, it is. He does a lot of marketing and social media and preparing stuff for the websites. So I like on something like the Tuscan here. When we were doing the prototypes on this, we each kind of took turns working on the torso section. We had a 3D modeler, Sean Fields, working on the understructure of that. We printed it numerous different ways, and then people like Pat at the shop, or Matt, or now Brandon, did finish work on those. And then Rob and I did the wrap, or someone else did the wrap. We just, it was a lot of back and forth on this, because you have to really work your way to a final on this. For the first prototype, I did all the head wraps. And Nate did some of the dyeing, and I did the rest of the distressing on that. I did the distressing on the final bandoliers for this. Pat did the paint on the face. Sean did the machining on the sample parts, and now we have a shop lined up to reproduce those. And it's one of these things where that'll take up some time. I've been trying to do the paint mastering for the Weequay maquette, which will be the next maquette. But it really gets tough for me to find time to do that. I find I'm either doing emails or I'm on calls. I'm dealing with our production partners or our vendors and things like that. And I'm helping everyone in the shop to do things as best as we possibly can. And that could be I'm helping the office people make estimates. It could be I'm helping someone in the back figure out the paint colors for something, or just critiquing stuff. And I do a lot of the 3D prep for our printing. We have a pretty good sized 3D print room now. We do a lot with that for both companies. And I tend to do the prep, although other people now thankfully can take them through and do the cleanup and stuff like that.
That's amazing. Tom, you're describing basically my day, but in a dental office. And so I go in and I have my 2 columns of patients, maybe 3. And then I have my 3 hygienists. I have my front desk, my back desk, all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm just going to go through my day. And all of a sudden it's like, Dr. Cost, I need you. I need you. and like, I'm trying to do workups. I'm trying to design things, treatment planning. And all of a sudden it's like, and then people are calling. So I totally understand. And you 100% of what you're going through.
The 5 o'clock Friday drive-by, as they call it, the 5:55 emergency, because we're out at 6, and 5:55, it's like, hey, can I get 10 of these done by Thursday? And you're just like, of what month?
So for us, Tom, it's, I'm getting married on Saturday. It's perfect, Friday at 2:45. We close at 3, and my front tooth is broken, and it's like, that's our Friday.
Think about. Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, there's many a time where our studio looks like a dental office. When we do the batches of Chewbaccas, There's
Mhm.
rows of Chewbacca teeth out there. We do werewolves. There's werewolf
Exactly.
teeth everywhere. Like it is not unusual for us to be, it's like, okay, give that Wookiee a dental, would you?
You guys probably make very good dentures. I'm gonna start sending you digital files, and you can start
Yeah,
processing
yeah.
my dentures.
We'll print that out. We can sculpt right on them, and yeah, no problem.
That's actually not. We got to talk about that later. But anyway,
Sure.
so so Tom, I kind of feel stupid because you told me about the Tuscan a year ago, and not intentionally, but we were talking about the Jawa that I was
Right.
buying.
Yeah.
And Tom does it's custom orders and stuff on Tom
Right.
Spina Designs, and one of them is a life-size Jawa. And I just got lucky because someone backed out of their Jawa, and I reached out to Tom, and Tom said, "Well, we might have one available for you," and then boom, it was available. But Tom's like, "But if it's not available, I kind of need this fabric because I want to make a life-size Tuscan." And I was like, "Oh, that sounds cool." I'm like, "Yeah, I'd like a life-size Tuscan," and totally went like right over my head. And so I knew about this a year ago, and then when it was announced, I'm like, "Holy crap, I knew about this." So
I plant the seeds. I'm actually
yeah, very
surprised we
honest.
don't have you. Usually we have people dissecting the shelves behind me when I do videos from the studio. But I'm surprised we don't have people going like, well, one, it's like, oh, what is that? Because we always used to get that. And then two, like nobody's asked what's behind the black paper that we put up in the last few videos, and it's like,
Dang, I
okay,
missed that
that's
too.
fine.
I went back and rewatched the video, and I was looking on your shelves for the new one. I couldn't find it. But
It's,
I've learned
I won't
patience.
say anything. I'm not allowed to.
No, it's okay. It's fine. So I definitely want to talk about this because I knew about it a year ago, and I'm an idiot. And then, I saw the pictures of it, and so let's be totally,
Yeah.
transparent. There's a lot of custom guys out there. They've been making
Yep.
Tuscans for a while, and
Yep.
and they look pretty good. And I, full disclosure, I own a custom Tuscan, and I really like it. But then I watched the Facebook live stream the other day, and I see this thing sitting next to you, and I'm just like, holy cow. I'm like, that thing is huge, and it makes sense
Yeah.
because it needs to go over someone's head.
Yeah.
And so then I'm like, oh, so my Tuscan, which still great. I'm selling it, by the way. So whoever wants it, just let me know. But I'm like, I have to get this.
Maybe you're not an idiot. I'm rethinking this thing you've said.
So it makes total sense when, and by the way, Tom, last year, we got bombarded with chess set,
The
Rancor,
Salacious.
Salacious, a bunch of maquettes and stuff like that. So this year I've been nervous because, and I know you just talked about the restorations at Lucasfilm. And so would you say that's part of the reason why you've been semi-silent for the first 8 or 9 months of the year?
No, and in fact, so the reason for that is mostly about Star Wars Celebration. Some of it was preparation for the show, and some of it was working with Lucasfilm and Disney, and wanting to make a bit of a splash there and show off a bunch of new stuff at once. We almost released the Tuscan prior to the show, and we definitely almost released Bib Fortuna as a maquette prior to the show. And it wasn't until like a month and a half before the show, maybe 2 months, that we switched that to Max Rebo being the first one, and then came up with the signature edition idea and had to, really race through getting those made. But it's funny to me. I like the idea of spacing things out a little bit, especially on the big stuff. We had a big sticker on our calendar. Rob and I have the infamous board that no one can see, right?
Yeah.
We had a big sticker on there for, I think it was August 8th. Yeah, there you go. Thanks, Kevin. It's a pair of cork boards, if you must know. I'm giving out tantalizing details. Lots of different color index cards. But and to be fair, we use different color index cards for pricing. And we want to make sure we don't have too many hot pink items, which is the highest end stuff we do, together. And I had a note on there that just said nothing big until after this date. And it was the date that all the Salacious payment plans would be paid off, because I wanted to give folks a breather there, a Tuscan breather, if it will. if you were. But the puns don't get better this late at night, folks.
That's okay.
So that's definitely a factor, and I was glad we were able to do that. There's also just there's something that the custom guys don't have to deal with. There's a lot of hoops that come with doing things licensed, and every time you think like, oh, okay, we've got this for February. This is going out in February. Sometime around May or June, you're going to go, okay, now we're really ready. It's just sort of the nature of the process. But it's also the nature of us wanting to do stuff right too. There's so many times, it's like doing is redoing, and to do things right means you've probably redone it 10 times prior. And it means you don't get all the way to the end and see something wrong and just go, all right, it's going out like that. It means sometimes you've got to strip stuff back and go back to the beginning and restart stuff. And we've done it numerous times on this stuff. Alan, but it's a really, it's an exciting time right now. So we've got this Tuscan Raider coming out. We've got a few magnets that are in the works that are actually kind of cool that are going to be coming out in the next couple of weeks. In about a week or two, we'll have the next magnet up, something from Obi-Wan. For New York Comic Con, which we won't be at, but we'll be doing a Comic Con from home, an exclusive. And that's going to be a really neat little magnet as well. We will have another maquette, probably Weequay. It'll probably be out in about a month. Okay. From there, we're going to try to do one more maquette before the end of the year.
Okay.
Probably for Black Friday. Nice. And we're going to, the thing that I really want to do though, is if we do that, have them available so that at least like the first 100 or so can go right out for anybody that pays in full. And if you use a payment plan, the maquettes are like $75 a month or whatever when they're on a payment plan. It's not bad. But if you're somebody who pays in full, we want to be sure like this will be there for Christmas.
That's nice.
And and then going into next year, we've got another bust in the works. We've got a mid-size replica thing in the works, and then a huge number of these maquettes that we are currently working on. And the big thing there is, we've shifted from just doing the regular edition to doing a signature and a regular edition for every maquette. That's nice. That gives us a chance to do the 100-piece kind of signature edition that's a little more tight, a little more special for the people who want to race in and get there the first minute it goes up for sale, and an open edition that lets people catch up and dive into this line a little later and not have to worry like, oh, is this going to sell out? And it gives me a website that's not empty, because the worst thing I can think of is to have a site where no one can buy anything. And it's cool because there's, we go to the archives and we've been scanning these maquettes and we're maybe about halfway through them right now, which is insane to me because I just love these. I remember watching all of these behind the scenes specials and the panning shot in From Star Wars to Jedi showing, 80 or 90 of these maquettes there. And to be able to look at them and go like, okay, got it, need it, got it, need it. I know I feel that way. I'm hoping other collectors feel that way once they start buying them. And for us to go in and do the research and find out, who sculpted each one, which has been this huge project I've been on for weeks now, talking with, Phil Tippett and Judy Elkins and Dave Carson and Kirk Thatcher and Tom Sanamon and all of these different people who worked on this, Chris Wayless, all of these guys that sculpted and girls that sculpted these amazing little monsters. We're now picking all their brains and figuring out who did what, and so that we can now start looking, all right, maybe that one's a signature edition. It's one of the reasons Bib Fortuna isn't next, because Ken Ralston sculpted Weequay, and so we're going to do our signature edition with Ken. We didn't want to have Phil Tippett. As amazing as Phil is, it's nice to break that up every once in a while.
I have like 3 Phil Tippets from Regal Robot like in the next room.
It's great. Love them. But we want to make sure, especially when you're dealing with that many different characters. Akbar would be a cool bust. Thank you.
So how long do you kind of schedule out kind of is it a year? I mean, you got to have probably a pretty long list of what you want to do. So how do you?
Our list of what we'd like to do is huge. You know, and even like down to, oh, we'd love to do this character, and we've already gone in and scanned the original mask at the archives kind of thing. You know, it's almost limitless. Like, I mean, it's enough product for, 10 years, 15 years easily, because it's a question of how much can people absorb? How much can we physically make the way that we're doing this stuff? I don't want to start, having stuff mass produced overseas if I can, for especially for the big bus stuff, the way we're doing it.
Yeah.
There's going to be a limit to how much we can physically make, how much people can fit in their collections, how much people's budgets can absorb. So, it's a long, long list. We try to plan some of this stuff out. I would say about a year out, but really it's probably a year and a half to 2 years. But I'll say this, that list goes out the window all the time. There's always something that comes up, like figuring out we were doing these signature editions and having a bump in Fortuna back. And all of a sudden that means like, oh, okay, well, we've got to move this one up. Then we got to move this one up. Now we got to get into that. It's like, we haven't even started on this. We got to get on that. And then other times we'll just hit on an idea. It's like, oh, Comic-Con's coming up. We're not going to be there, but we can do it from home. So this is like maybe 3 weeks ago. We go like, well, shoot, what can we do? And we go to our list of ideas and we're like, oh, there's one. Okay, let's do that. Does Disney allow you to do whatever you want? Or do you have to get through the compliance department first? So one, Disney never lets anyone do exactly what they want, or whatever they want, I should say. But we're very lucky. We partner with Lucasfilm. Disney owns Lucasfilm. They are very involved, Disney, in our contracts and marketing, and they have approval of everything at the end of the day. But Lucasfilm is who we work with to develop the products, and so that's who we're having the conversation of. Well, we want to do this archive collection, and we want to make these maquettes that are scanned off the real ones. And the good thing is our partner Lucasfilm gets excited about the same stuff we do most times. There's a few things that we just don't see eye to eye on, and those don't happen. But for the most part, I could not be happier with what we get to do. And I am glad that we have someone there, and just a company in general, that shares the passion for the material and the characters and the IP and the artifacts, that we want to do these things, warts and all, that we want to do this stuff, as original as we can and make it look like the prop and not just an interpretation.
Yeah, I love that. Hey, Tom, so this is going up for sale tomorrow officially.
That's right.
And it's available
Eastern on regalrobot.com.
And so it's noon Eastern, right? Because
correct.
Typically in the past, these things have sold out very quickly. And so in the past, I would schedule a little break at noon on the Regal Robot release. And
I know you chipped your tooth and you get married in a day or two, but I got a bus to buy.
And no lie. So it was probably the Rancor. I had to put a block in my schedule, and I ran downstairs to my office. I'm like, okay, 11:59, refresh. And then it's like, it's up, boom. And, and then I think that Rancor sold out in it was something ridiculous, less than 30 minutes.
The Rancor wasn't bad. It was I think the Rancor was a day or a day and a half.
Okay.
The Holochess, which I thought, so that was a huge passion project for me and Rob. I fell in love with those puppets. I was with Pat doing some restorations work at Phil Tippett's studio. And they were working on the stuff. Nice try. They were working on prepping the figures for the shoot in Solo. And and they were like, oh, do you want to play with them? I was like, do I? So they're like, just lock the cabinet when you're done. Of course, it wasn't quite like that, but it felt that way. But yeah, so I got to mess with these things, and immediately was like, I always thought they were cool, but I kind of only knew Hunk and Mr. Big, and I knew the other ones a little bit from the Chronicles book, but I didn't have an attachment to them. But seeing them in person and how big they were and how chunky these things were and the types of detail and the massive variety in the designs, that blew me away. And I instantly was just like, oh, okay, this is something that I really want to run with. And years before I had thought about doing them, but we didn't have the infrastructure to do it. And it was one of these like, oh, okay, now we can do this. And so, yeah, that 77 piece set. So these are the 2-packs, and we still have a handful. So we just finished shipping out the last of these, and we made a few extras, and knock on wood, we didn't have to send them to people because they didn't break, which was nice. Yeah. So yeah, if anybody missed out and they want to pick any up, there's a handful left. But yeah, you know, doing something like this was such a dream come true. So much work, but I had no idea if it was going to sell because I knew how much we had to charge for it. You know, it's like any price you see on our site, this is the way to think about it. If you see a price on our site, it is the absolute lowest to the penny that we can possibly put it out there. I would love to put stuff out at the prices people tell us we should. You know, there are times where people have suggested prices on stuff, and I'm like, the packaging costs more than that. The shipping costs more than that. But never mind the licensing fees. But whatever. I knew what this was going to have to cost. And I said, I have no idea how this is going to sell. Like, we put it up, and I genuinely thought, I was like, all right, we're only doing 77 of these. We did the triple signature edition because I was lucky enough to know, you know, Dennis and Phil and John Berg. And it was one of these things where I was like, either this is going to sell great, or we are going to, you know, be stuck with a lot of Holochess pieces for a very long time. And they wound up selling in about 25 minutes, I think, which shocked the heck out of me.
That's what it was. Yeah.
It was nuts. Salacious was about 2 or 2.5 days, I think. And Salacious, we upped the edition size. He was also a high price, but we upped it to 150, more than double the chess set. And you know, our goal is not to sell out in minutes. Our goal is to make enough so that everybody who wants one can buy one and buy it somewhat comfortably, you know. And I feel like if something's up for a few days or a week or a few weeks, like, I'm okay with that. I know everybody loves the fast sellout, and it's a great story to tell and all of that stuff. But you'll notice, you know, we're doing bigger editions, and that's very much on purpose. We don't want to shut people out of what we're doing. And at the same time, the editions are still tiny by mass produced means. You know, like there are studios, you know, factories wouldn't even look at us for a run of 150 pieces on some of this stuff, or 77 pieces. You know, even the maquettes where they're, you know, 100-piece signature edition, 250 on the regular edition might be small for some of those places. You know, so we're pushing ourselves to make these things doable for us and to be able to make enough, hopefully, to get to as many people as possible. And I'm really curious how the Tuscan's going to do tomorrow. It's a really interesting time. It's certainly a different economic time than it was a year ago when we did Salacious Crumb. It's a different type of piece than Salacious Crumb. I don't sleep on this page, folks. There's good stuff on there. The prices are great. Anybody that complains about the price of the other stuff, just go to this page. It's all cheap. Go to the decor page. There's, you know, you can get a magnet that's a scan of the Rancor's head for $30. I mean, come on. You know? We put the same kind of love into the decor stuff, like that Rancor corbel up top. Like, who else is doing
very
that?
cool.
You know what I mean? Like, who's looking in the deep background of the cut scene where Reese and Yakface get into a fight and accidentally punch C-3PO and going, that's what we're going to make. Let's find the real prop at the archives and scan it. You know, like,
that's amazing. That's good size,
who would do that other than us?
That's a really good size. Yeah, nobody.
Yeah. So it's 18 inches tall. They're all, and like everything else, made in the USA, hand painted, hand finished. Like, it's, you know, all of this stuff, even this little stuff, is made with that same love and care, same attention to detail. You know, a lot of times that dewback magnet there is scanned off the real piece. The Space Slug scanned off the real prop. Han Solo scanned off the real prop. Rancor magnet scanned off the prop. You know, awesome. we're not kidding around, even when it comes to this stuff, because that's our standard. That's what we're trying to do. You said before, you looked at our Chewy and you said, there it is. That's the benchmark. They're the best. Thank you for that. But that's what we're going for. And I hope that comes across even with the small stuff.
No, I totally agree with the small stuff too. I have a ton of the small stuff, and even like the Mythosaur skull, the Mandalorian version, the Boba version. Those things are just crazy detailed for what it is, and you would think that there's not much to it, but like all the nooks and crannies, the bone details, and all that.
They take a while just to paint something like that. It looks like it's one of these things where it's like, oh, they put paint on and they wiped it off. It's like, well, very technically, yes. But like, you don't just do that in 5 minutes on a big skull like that with that much detail. And it's real easy for that to go wrong.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I believe it. I believe it.
Is that Junior there? Yeah. Thanks, man. Junior, yeah. I appreciate that. Very glad you like it. Make sure you scritch his head. He loves that. And that's man. Giovanna standing with Chewbacca there. We had Giovanna, Maria, and Melissa were all just about 5 foot. And so it's like you would put them in, like, it's bad enough when you put me in a shot with Chewbacca. I look like a tiny thing, but like you put one of them in, it's like, all right, forget it,
Oh yeah, they're like not even up to like halfway.
But he's massive. He's 7.5 feet tall. It's exactly what Peter was in the costume. The costume added very little padding in the feet and a couple inches on top of the head. And by the time you get in there, with that little added to Peter's 7'2" frame to start, right around 7'6", and that's exactly where ours come in. Work with replica props at all, or do you only work with original props? When it comes to restoring stuff, we have definitely restored some replica stuff. One thing that happens though is that restoration work does take time. That does add up, and a lot of times the screen used props are the ones where you can balance out the cost of that investment of that time versus the value of the piece. And a lot of times with replicas, people wind up going, I've got this replica, I want to fix it. And you just kind of go like, well, all right, I'm sorry to say this is how much it's going to cost. And they go like, well, I could buy 2 new ones for that. It's like, well, that's usually what we recommend in this case. But we've had stuff where we have a family with, they had a family member pass away that had a bunch of these Halloween decorations that are old pieces. They're not extremely valuable. You could go out and buy another one somewhere or try and find one on eBay or something. But they have invested in having us do this repairs and conservation work on them because they have such sentimental value to the family. Mm-hmm. So what any one person is going to invest in is going to change based on the person, based on how they collect and what they're into.
So Tom, we talk a lot about Regal Robot, a lot about Tom Spina design, which was on purpose.
And appreciated.
I mean, I think I told Tom before, it's like whenever I see Tom get up and go on a live stream or something, the charisma and the passion in which he talks about these projects just gets me all like hyped up, and I'm like, I got to buy something new. And so
I'll take passion. I'll debate charisma, but sorry.
I mean, I'll give it to you. Yeah. I was at the airport, and I don't know, maybe last year, and I was watching Tom do something about, it might have been the chess pieces. And I was like, man, that's a lot of passion about that. And so then I'm like, what can I buy right now? Because I had the chess pieces pre-ordered. And so I found the Emperor chair. I was like, you know what? I need a new chair. And I'm like, I got to stop watching Tom.
Folks, that's how it's done. So what I think Dr. Mike is telling you is the prescription is when you watch any of our large live streams, even if you've already bought something, go to the website, buy something else. Yeah, you'll feel good in the end.
It's just because it's the way I like to conduct business myself, and I have a lot of passion. And okay, well, how can you be passionate about a root canal or an extraction or an implant? But I mean, my patients get it, and then my staff gets it.
You're helping people at the end of the day.
But you can help people, and you can be bored with it, and you can be like, Tom, true. You can build these props, and you can be like, oh, here's my. Here's my Tuscan, but you're energetic. You can tell that you love it.
To make,
another life size Chewy.
Genuinely luckiest kid in the world with this stuff, man. I mean, how many people get to make their passion what they do for their living. And it's
sweet.
Man, I mean, you definitely know this with your business, I'm sure. The old adage of love what you do and you won't work a day in your life. That's actually a lie. Love what you do and you will work even harder every day for as many hours there are in the day, and even do podcasts at like 11 at night, which I'm good. We don't have to rush. But you will still love every minute of that.
I totally agree. Now I know there's a question about the Rancor, but I just want to, because Tom's on Collectors Enabled, and I don't know how much you know about these new studios coming out, Tom, like Queen Studio, Prime One, and all that. Do you follow any of that at all? Like
some of it, yeah. It's not stuff I collect, but I mean, I love seeing good work, and I certainly keep an eye on what's in my Facebook feed and all of that fun stuff.
So one of our favorite companies, like Queen Studios and Prime One too, I think is making some of the best, replica type stuff out there. And I mean, I know you've worked on Alien and stuff like that. I'm wondering if you had seen this and what your
I did see this. Yes. Yeah. So it's interesting. I am a real purist when it comes to the Giger Alien. This is a beautiful, beautiful interpretation. And correct me if I'm wrong, it's a little underscaled.
Yes.
Which is not surprising considering the size of the original. We've gotten to handle a few things from the first film, and including the prototype suit, the translucent suit that they were going to try and use, because originally the Alien was supposed to be like kind of see-through. We've actually handled that original suit and done conservation work on it.
That's cool.
But so to me, for something like this, I would really want it full scale. And I would, again, this is just my own personal taste. I would rather get something that was, had lineage back to the original, even if that meant it was rougher, even if it meant it was less detailed, even if it meant it was less pretty. But this is a gorgeous piece. This is probably, I've seen a lot of interpretations of it. This is one of the better interpretations I've ever seen of it. But for me, I would still go back to the original. I do like that they put some of the details, like the proper type of hosing with the writing and stuff on it. Although obviously that is a scaled thing, because if they're a scaled piece, it's not the found part, but it's still, putting that level of detail in is great. A lot of respect for this piece. I think it's really, really cool.
That's pretty high praise to me. I think that's amazing. Okay. That's cool. Now, Tom, do you like DC, Marvel, any of that stuff? Like, is that in your wheelhouse at all?
I have. So my collecting is pretty varied. But let's see. So on the DC side, for me, it's the Batman animated series figures and stuff that, the older stuff, which to me still feels like the new stuff. Because I think DC and I think the superpowers line and all of that. I probably at some point will go back and pick up the superpowers figures for myself. That was a big deal line when that came out. On the Marvel side, I pick and choose. I got some of the reaction figures that came out with of some of the Marvel characters are really, really cool. I got them in the office. So I get stuff. So I have like the proper collection at home, and then I have like the fun stuff. I just get onesie twosies and put them in the case at work. I've got some Alien pieces from NECA. I've got a first movie Terminator in there, because to me the first movie is just where it's at. Same with Alien. I'm one of these people where I love Alien and Aliens. I love Terminator and Terminator 2, but I love the first ones so much more than the sequels. And I know a lot of people flip that, but on the Marvel side, there's like a Green Goblin in there. That was a big deal for me as a kid. I loved the Spider-Man cartoons and stuff. And I've got actually Amigo-sized Green Goblin I got from KB Toys in the 90s that was just like, okay, this is amazing. You know, this is like what the Mego seemed like it was when I was a kid, but really wasn't this good, you know?
Yeah.
And let's see here. I mean, on the Marvel side of stuff, I love the Marvel movies. You know, right up through Endgame was just, oh man, what a fantastic series and run there. Love the X-Men. Love, you know, as a kid, it was all Wolverine and Punisher comics and all of that stuff because that was just huge at the time. Love the Star Wars Marvel comics. I'm almost done with my run on those. I got a handful left, and I'm just picking them up one at a time, cheap, nothing fancy. But that's a great run. I had most of them as a kid and saved them. I've just been filling in the holes. Been filling in my Star Wars vintage collection a bit. That's a big thing. Got some Harryhausen stuff. I like that. There was some X Plus pieces that came out probably 20 years ago now. But these beautiful vinyl sculpts that they did. And I got that whole run. I'm just, huge fan of that stuff. Very inspiring. Universal Monsters, Sideshow's 8-inch monster line. The first stuff Sideshow did absolutely blew me away. It was you had this great combination between an Aurora model kit and an articulated figure. And it was just, hidden joints and beautiful sculpts. And, the first time you really, really captured Karloff as the monster and as the mummy and all of that stuff. So I've got that whole run from when they came out. I've picked up some others. Some other companies have done similar sized figures. So whenever they do those and like some new character comes out or whatever, I'll grab one of those. 90 inches, can he fit in my basement? So technically, if he's 7'6", that's 90 inches, but he has a 3-inch base. So that would make him too tall. So what could we do? One, we could put him on a metal plate base instead of the 3-inch riser. And two, we could customize his height slightly and cut him down in the torso or something like that. I don't like to cheat like that, but if it's an inch out of 7.5 feet, you might do okay. Or we could put him in a little more of a crouching pose. When we repose a figure like that, it might add a little bit of cost because now you are adding a good chunk of time to somebody who has to, because this we do have a mold for. Someone now has to make that casting in the mold, then take it out, chop it up, repose it. But we've done it for a few people already. And if you put them in a little bit of a crouch, you could start to lean almost towards those promo pictures where him and Han are in front of the Falcon. Maybe not quite the full crouch there, but you could lower his head a bit and give him some forward lean and put the gun up more. And you could save a few inches that way easily. So confident to tell you, Junior, just if you want to approach that one day, drop a line.
It won't be long from now.
Wait, my email just went off. What do you know?
I'm just curious. How many pieces is this? Like, is it the torso, the arms, the head, or how do you ship this, Tom?
So the legs and torso are one piece. So if you mean how it's delivered or how it's made are two different things. So delivered, it's the legs as a single set with the hips, the torso, the arms, the head, the blaster, the bag.
That's not bad.
When we're making it, the arms and hands are separate pieces. The toes and the front half of the feet are separate pieces. The teeth, the tongue, the eyes, all separate pieces. Each finger is actually cast individually on that version of it because you can see his fingers when he's holding the blaster. When we do the hands down, I tend to do the black leather gloves, which is what he wore in Empire and Jedi. But the monster hands with the fingers just work better for the one with the bowcaster. What's neat is in the first movie is actually just Peter's hands with a little bit of makeup and some dark nails. And when you see the promo pictures, there's a few of them where you've got Chewie in the docking bay and he literally has the bowcaster, but he puts this hand over and it's so that the fur can hang over his hand and not show the human fingers. But it's a
awesome.
neat pose. I've always wanted to do one like that because I love that picture.
That's awesome. So Tom, someone asked about, could you talk about a little bit about the process of the Rancor? It's an incredible piece. I missed out on that one. Process and history.
Yeah. That was one of the first sort of big replica pieces we did. There was a ton that went into the development side of it. We got to know that piece real well at the archives prior to us even being a licensee. We then started with a really, really high resolution laser scan of it, digital scan, capturing the 3D data. The piece itself is in a really weird pose. It had an armature put in it, but he's kind of leaning back and he's very strange, the actual prop. So we then had to, and this is the challenge with even the chess pieces and stuff, how do you repose that without losing the detail? And there's some tricks and things in ZBrush and whatever where you can do that. And then how do you go back in and recreate whatever detail got a little messed up in that process of moving things? Or how do you add stuff back in that you could see in photos but didn't get captured in the scan? Or the reverse of that, where we found stuff in the scan where we're like, oh, we've got to fix this pockmark here. And then you realize, oh no, those are actually cuts. And they're on him. He's got like a number of wounds on him. There's like 3 on one side of his head. There's one on his back. There's another one on the other side of his head. There's, stuff that we would go through every photo we could possibly find. Yeah, there's one of them up near the top.
Yep.
Every photo we could find. Here, other stuff. The earring that he's wearing in the archives right now is not the one from the movie. So we had to go back to the photos and figure out what is that earring, what's the size, how is it made, and then we handmade each of those. They have a little wire wrap around them. So we made individual rings first, and then wrapped each one of those in wire, and then painted them with 2 different colors of paint so that they would get an age pass and a rust pass. We figured out he had the ball bearing eyes talking to Phil, and obviously you could see that in the prop. We figured out that he had chitinous tail there that Phil talked about with us. Nobody had ever done his tail in bone before. But when you watch the behind the scenes, that's what's going on there. The only thing that we really took liberty with was closing up the area where Phil stuck his arm, which was kind of I think it was, I think Phil shared a picture of it when it went up for sale, and he was like, or when we made one for him, and he's just like, it looks just like the real one, except it doesn't have the place where my hand went up his ass. But that was the goal, and could we do this in a way where it was resin, but still had that look and that weight and that feel of that organically sculpted creature, that organically sculpted old school foam latex puppet. And that's like, if you want to describe my job, that's 90% of it. Is like, how do we do this in a modern way, but capture the old look and make it repeatable? And so that's how this guy got started. Then it was outputting him at full resolution. We initially did a low resolution full size output just to see where the scan was at and to test some poses. Then we did a high resolution small print to test how we'd break him down for printing. And then from that print, we were able to figure out how do we break him down for production, for molds and stuff. So it was a process of printing him, seaming some parts together for molds, leaving some parts apart for molds, making those molds, then seaming everything together for each casting, and then layers and layers and layers of paint to capture that look that Phil had. And then even things like, the silicone drool drip, making that, we could have just cast that in a mold, but we didn't. We made it the exact way that they did it on the shoot. The only difference is their drool was actual liquid. So we had to figure out, how do you capture it the same way, but freeze time on it? It was just an infinite number of tiny, tiny details that we just worked on until it was just ready to go.
Yeah. I can say, from owning one, that I think this is a super there's just something special about it because, you know, I feel like last year was the year of the Rancors. So you got the sideshow, the giant one, you got the Regal Robot one. I think there was even another. And for people who got the sideshow one, you know, it was like 29 inches, and I have that one too. It's idealized, it's nice, it's cool, but it looks a lot different when you compare it to this. And then you get this thing, and it's still pretty good size. It's heavy.
Yeah, about 20 inches or something.
Oh yeah, it has good presence, and the arm reaching out. Like it's coming to get you, so you need to be careful. But
I do love the pose. I'm gonna do one of these for our team on that one. That's a fun pose.
I mean, I think you nailed it. It's just there's something special about it, and it is cool to look at sort of like the defects or like the pox and all this stuff. And there's like these little areas that you're like, well, this is a paint error? And it's like, well, no, this is exactly the way it was supposed to be. And
we have that. If you can get to a shot of his, I love the profile on this thing. If you could get a shot of the other side, his right arm is. So we had people all the time ask us about there's a spot right here, a drip of patina color, and it's the same green that is staining his cuff. And in particular on that cuff, we matched the drips on there and everything. You know, it's like we didn't just do a cuff, we didn't just do metal, like we made it look just like that real prop. But that little patina drip is on him. It's a weird thing. I don't know if the idea is someone saying like, oh, he got stabbed with a metal thing years ago and it's dripping patina. Like, I genuinely don't know why it's there, but it's on the prop. It's in the movie. It's in all the behind the scenes photos, and gosh darn it, that made it, you know, that meant it's got to be on our prop too.
Yeah. It's such a special piece, and it's one that, you know, it just this was only an edition size of
83 pieces.
Yeah. So, you know, we were just talking about that. So a good edition size, you know, let's talk about like XM Studios or Queen Studios is like 99 is like really good, and like 299 is good. So 83 handmade.
Right. Yeah. Pretty tight. Pretty tight.
Yeah.
And that was another one where we were like, you know, this is an expensive piece. It was coming out at the same time as other Rancors. You know, how are we going to do in that market? We knew what we had. We knew what our direction was, and that it was very, very different from every other offering. But were people going to come along for the ride with us? You know, and thankfully they did. It was that was a real eye opener for us. Every release is, you know, whether it sells out in 5 minutes, 2 weeks, 10 months, whatever, you know, everything is a learning experience. And what's funny is, because of all of the other factors that go with this stuff, you know, whether it's the economy, whether it's what other people have available at the time, other companies, what the custom guys are making at the same time, you know, all of these things affect how one of these things does. The main thing for us is that we make them in a way that we can do them in small batches, that each batch, you know, the piece pays enough to get it made, and that we're not, you know, I never want to put us in one of those situations where you're depending on the next pre-order to pay for the last thing to make it. Like, no, we budget this stuff. We make sure that like that money comes in, that goes to this project, and we get this stuff done. And so, you know, if we had sold 60 of these, I would have been thrilled, and we would have made 60 of them. If we sold 40 of them, I would have been thrilled, and we'd have made 40 of them, and we'd have done okay. We wouldn't do as well as if we did the rest, because the dev cost now has to get compressed, and you know, it's a higher percentage of each piece. But the goal for what we're doing is to be like, okay, let's make the number we think is right, the number that we'll get to the right number of people, and to give as many people a chance at this thing as possible. But also balance what we can do. At the time, we were still growing in terms of how we produce this stuff. We genuinely thought like 83 might be the most of anything we could ever do at the time. Like, we were like, this might be our limit. You know, we've since gotten up to 150. I don't imagine there's going to be a bust or something like that will be much more than that, though. Not the way we're doing it.
Yeah. And
then there's these guys.
Yeah.
I mean, the two knuckleheads in the t-shirts, not the. You know.
Yeah. I have my deluxe number 4 in the other room. Yeah. Really special piece.
Thank you. That's another
Yeah.
piece I think needs to be seen in person to be appreciated.
Yes.
I was very glad we could bring one of them to Celebration for that reason.
Ah, that's cool. Yeah, this piece, I think the Rancor was like my Regal Robot gateway drug, and then it just led to all sorts of shenanigans. Tom sent me a very nice Christmas end of the year gift basket, so thank you, Tom.
Oh, yeah.
But that's probably not a good thing. But yeah, I got this piece, and you talked about crating and stuff like that, and this
Yeah.
thing was crated. I had more packing material. I think I had packing material for like 6 months. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, you that's it. Choose to reuse, folks. You know, when you get this stuff, put it in a bag, set it aside, use it when you sell off all your other collectibles to buy our stuff.
Yeah,
seriously. I it was in my garage. My wife was like, "What are you going to use all that bubble wrap?" And I was like, "I will."
Yeah,
I did.
absolutely. Yep.
But this thing is a real special piece, and its presence is
Thanks.
beautiful. The big glass eyes are so nice. You know, Tom had one left over, and I think it was the Han variation with the double horn. And I'm like, "Well, I really want the Luke," and you know, Tom's like, "No problem." And so like he sawed off one and then he put it in the box. Yep, pretty much.
You know, just yeah.
So you got to see this
Thank
thing.
you, man. No, and these are done. You know, I think you're looking at a batch of 8 of them there. That was the biggest batch we ever did. We do
That's
5
sweet.
at a time now when we do them.
Yeah.
And I think there's 3 of them at the studio right now. We had orders for 1 or 2, and it was like, okay, let's get 5 of them started just while we're in this mode. And what we do is we make them to a certain level. You know, I think we've gotten to the point where we tend to make about 50-50 with the Luke horn, Han horn. Because you can always go back and retrofit a Han. But we make them without the fur, without the snow and the rains. And then if somebody orders the snow and the rains, we can add that to order, and it can still ship out in like a week or 2. Because we have some of the extra rains made up and stuff like that. And the snow just takes about 2 days. But it's, you know, it is one of these things where it's always cool when one goes out, and when, you know, when we brought it to Celebration, we had so many people coming up and taking photos with it. And one of the guys that kept coming back and looking at it, we came home from the show and there was an order through the website for a Tauntaun, and it was him. And I was like, surprised. Okay, all good. You know, that's.
I'm not surprised.
But yeah, the size on this one too. I mean, it makes Chewie look small. You know,
it's a solid
like
42
inches, or
40 something.
Inches.
Like I just moved mine. Yeah, it's big.
There's someone who asked for it not to be as tall, and that's something that's doable. You know, that's a totally custom neck on that. This thing is cast head, horns, upper and lower teeth, 2 eye forms, 2 ears, and a giant neck piece. Wow. So this is one where it's like someone wanted that custom neck, and you go through and basically you take one of the neck pieces and you cast it in rigid foam and start shaving it down by hand until it looks right.
Wow. I think we have we'll do one more question here from Johnny.
Yep. Hiya, Johnny. Did you ever see making something for Solo? Maybe. I never say never on that stuff. I think right now we have so much stuff from the original trilogy that we're dying to do that it'll probably be a while till we get some of this stuff. You know, get to things like Solo and stuff like that. But there's, you know, randomly we've done stuff from Mando. We've done some Book of Boba stuff. We've got a magnet coming up from Obi-Wan. We've got another magnet coming up that's technically from the sequels. You know, and eventually there will probably be some prequel stuff. You know, we've been looking at stuff like that in the archives. We've been scanning some things with that in mind. I think for us, we do have to make sure that whatever we're doing has enough of an audience that it can at least get us to that minimal place where we need to make the project worth doing. But yeah, there's a ton of excellent. They're coming. There's just so much stuff we want to do. It's funny. We get a lot of people who suggest stuff. They're like, oh, do this bust, oh, do that bust. And it's just kind of like, we'd love to, you know, like, you know, at some point. But I appreciate those comments. I love that people are excited about the stuff and want to suggest things, and it's always nice. And what's really funny to me is when people suggest something that we're already working on, and you've just got to kind of like, oh yeah, no, nice.
Yeah.
like if someone, I'm not going to say who, asked about a Tuscan Raider or something.
I need the robes for a Tuscan.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Whatever.
To be fair, the Jawa has a lot of
life-size Tuscan too.
That'd be.
There's two different versions of them from the original trilogy. Anyway, you got the Bantha Rider and the regular guy.
Just wait until Chewie's paid off.
That's it. We'll talk.
Yeah.
Actually, we don't even have to talk. I'll just get on and do a video, and you'll just go buy it anyway.
Yeah.
Damn it, no.
Spina.
To be fair, all right. To be totally fair, the freaking 11 or 12-month payment plan is ridiculous. Like it really, for anything big or small. I mean, it's like how Apple gets away with selling iPhones every year. It just gets a little bit more expensive. You're like, oh, my bill went up $5 a month. No big deal.
Oh, well.
New iPhone.
We had to ease our way into the payment plan thing. We didn't even start doing payment plans until the Rancor. That was the first payment plan item. And with that, it was, I want to say it was like 3 or 4 months. Like it wasn't a long payment plan at all. And it really was about like, okay, what can we manage? Like I said, we're like 4 or 5 people in the office at any given time. That's not a lot of people to manage 2 companies worth of stuff, and especially just all the customer service. And plus, anybody who's ever bought from us knows you order something, you'll get an automated message from the website. You'll get an automated message from however you paid, PayPal partially, whatever. And then you'll get a personal message from a real person at the studio that tells you about your order and thanks you and follows up with you when you have questions, or will, write with tracking as a second email once that's, all set. That's really important to me. That is something where, keeping that personal touch, as long as we can possibly do it, no matter how much we grow, I want to keep that. And I think it's doable, but it does, put some limitations on us. And that's where we had to figure out with the payment plans. Like, okay, can we get this to 6 months comfortably and track that well? Can we get it to 8 months and track that well? That's what we did for the Holochess. And then it was like, so it's just come. All right, we're going to try a year. People keep asking about it. And it worked. It worked okay. But every time you do that, it adds a few more payments. Those are more things that have to get put into the bookkeeping system. Someone has to do that. Then it's more stuff to track for royalties and all this other stuff. There's a lot of careful stuff that we have to do along the way to make sure that we're not going to fall into the wrong hole with licenses and things like that too. It's an interesting process. I mean, certainly making this stuff is more fun, but the business side of it is a very unique challenge and something that, I think has its own level of interest for me, luckily.
Right. Well, when it feels real good when you order a, I don't know, $3,000 Rancor or a $20,000 Chewy, you get an email literally within minutes, saying, "Hey, Mike, I thank you for your order. Just had a couple follow-up questions. For, would you like this or that? Blah blah blah. We're looking forward to making this for you." And it just it's like, okay, you can buy a Queen Studios like what we're looking at. You could buy the Captain America bus or all this stuff, and it's like, okay, thank you for your deposit, or you may not even get an automated email.
Right.
So the little you feel like quality, you feel the personal touch, and it's not just a nameless company. And the cool thing is whenever you get something in hand, I think typically you get like a certificate and it'll say like who actually worked on the project, and it's like, this was, Tom will sign it, but it'll be like, Katie, who, this, that, and the other. And it's like, well, thank you guys, because it's great.
It's cool. And it depends. It depends on the piece, because sometimes we try to put credits on everything on the website. In the there's the short description, which is up near the photos. You scroll down past the wide image, and there's the design story, we call it, section of the page. And that's where we try and give some background on it and say who did the work on it, who developed this stuff. Sometimes that's on the COAs. Sometimes that gets on the packaging. Sometimes it doesn't make it because Disney and Lucasfilm are particular about that stuff. But I try to give credit wherever possible. And I think it's like, to me, it's to me, it's cooler to know the story of the piece and
Yeah.
know who, like, and an artist made this, that someone sat there and it didn't just come off of a computer, or like you snap a scan and it's done. You know, it's like there's art that happens here. And to be able to put that into people's minds and to be able to tell them about that part of it is really cool to me. And I want to try and always do that wherever we can. But the other thing we do, so you'll get your COA, but we always try and put a handout card in, and we always, you know, it's a handwritten thanks. And that's really important. You know, it's like, I like, especially on the small stuff, like the big stuff. All right, fine. Somebody throws in a handwritten thank you note. It's like, you almost like, that's great. Maybe not a lot of companies don't do it, but it's not like, okay, you know, there was money in the budget to scribble this, but like someone gets a $29 magnet. I want them to get the same card. Someone picks up the $6 magnet stand. I want them to get a thank you. You know, this is like, you're the reason we get to make this cool stuff. And, you know, for us to keep doing that means we have to make our customers feel special. And it's such a little thing. And I like, it's nice that people notice that. I've seen a couple of videos where people are like, I guess they print these with the thank you. It's like, no, they're always handwritten. And if you ever get one from, there's a couple of people in the shop with really bad handwriting. If you get one that looks like a serial killer wrote it, just let us know. We'll get you a better one next time.
You know, it's funny because the other company that does that is RS Prop Masters. And anytime you buy like a helmet or something or whatever, they have like a nice little like Merry Christmas, you know, thank you for your, you know, whatever. It's real nice. And it's just, I like it. And that's why I keep buying. But
thank you.
You know, but it is getting a little late, and
a little bit. Yeah. That went a little longer.
It's getting late on the East Coast. So
all good.
Anything else, Tom, that you would like to say, or before we wrap up?
I mean, thanks to everybody that you know gets excited about the stuff we're doing. Thank you for the emails. Thank you for the calls. Thank you for the you know, Facebook comments. You know, if you like what we're doing, share what we do. Tell other folks. Get your friends on our email newsletter. You know, we don't spam folks, but it's like I love, you know, adding more people to our roster and getting more people to know what's going on. We're still a tiny company. Thank you, Kevin. Well, there you go. It's a deal. That's the written contract if it's in a comment on a thing like this, right?
Yep.
But yeah, you know, thank you to everybody for all of that. Please continue to follow along and share what we're doing on social. That's always so appreciated. And yeah, anybody who's curious about that Tuscan Raider, tomorrow, noon Eastern, is your chance to pick one up. It's got a 12-month payment plan. It's less than $300 a month. It's scanned off of the real mask, and we loved it so much that we scanned it twice, because we scanned one mask and then we found this one screen matched to a bunch of photos. So we went back and scanned the other one, because doing is redoing, right? You know? And it has a level of authenticity, I think, that I don't think has been achieved with that character. I love the character. I've seen ones done great in the past. I've made ones in the past that I felt were pretty good. This is next level. Even just things like the fabrics on it are custom and are an order of magnitude better than anybody else has done in the past. And I'm so excited about that aspect of it, because that to me is one of those things that is a feel thing. You know, it's like if the texture is wrong, if it doesn't shred the right way, and it's like, I know what everybody uses, I know what's out there, I've done it that way, and it looks fine, but it ain't right. And it's like, this feels right. You look at this after being in the archives and you just feel like, oh, that's the one. Like, that's, did somebody put this in their luggage? Like, you know, and I'm, you know, that's a little bit of a pat on the back for the whole team. And I hate to be immodest, but I'll be that way just a little bit right now, because this is the current piece and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with everything you said. I have to agree and let you guys know, because you know, everything that Regal Robot puts out, it's what Tom just said, it's like the feel, the look, the smell, you know, the presence. It's going to be awesome. So I definitely, this is a stamp of approval type thing, and I'll be there at
there we go.
At noon. I'm going to block my schedule.
Dr. Mike says bye. I just need to put that on the website, you know.
But yeah, I think it's going to be great, and I hope it does.
By the way, nice shirt. I meant to say that earlier. Yeah,
I think I think eventually, I forgot when I ordered this, but I ordered something. I'm like, can you guys I'm going to buy a shirt too. And then I bought the shirt. So yeah, it's actually comfy. It's real nice.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, well, thank you, Tom, for joining us. Thank you for spending your time. I know it's getting late on the East Coast. Me too. So
yeah, I got a little bit of prep to do for tomorrow still. So I will jump into that. But thank you for spending so much time with me and let me come on and jammer on about this stuff. It's all a lot of fun. I'm just always nice to be a guest.
and so Tom, when the gaffy sticks get closer to release, let's do this again.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're gonna put a little bit of air between those and the Tuscan bust, just because of trying to keep the higher end stuff a little spaced out. And it means they're coming out a little further back than I wanted them to, but it's okay. I'd rather do that than hit people too hard right off the bat. In the meantime, we've got some maquettes coming. We've got some magnets coming. And, of course, the big Tuscan. So there's plenty coming. There's so much in the works. And I'm just super anxious to share with everybody.
I love it. Well, Tom, thank you again. John, thank you, man. I guess we're going to close up and hope you all have a good night. We'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.